He just helped the alien queen pick up her crown. Now she says he's her mate for life. Daniel was not a hero. He was just a quiet engineer from Earth. He didn't like attention. He liked machines, wires, and quiet nights. But fate had other plans. 3 weeks ago, his ship crashed on an alien planet called Valeria. It was a strange world, full of tall purple trees and glowing rivers. The people here were even stranger, tall, strong, beautiful beings with silver skin and bright eyes. They were called Valari. Daniel sat quietly in the royal ship. He was still trying to understand what had just happened. One moment, he was handing over a crown. The next, he was being flown to the royal palace as the queen's chosen mate. He looked down at the clothes they gave him. Soft white fabric with gold symbols, nothing like the rough jumpsuit he used to wear. Even his boots had been replaced with velvet shoes that made no sound when he walked. The ship hummed softly as it flew above the glowing forests of Valeria. Alien birds soared in the sky. Strange towers rose in the distance, sparkling with energy. It should have been beautiful, peaceful. But Daniel's mind was spinning. What does mate even mean here? He whispered to himself. He looked at the royal guards sitting across from him. They wore sharp armor and kept their eyes forward. Not one of them spoke to him. Not one answered his questions. He had so many. When the ship landed, the doors opened with a hiss. A large crowd was waiting. More Valari nobles in elegant robes. And at the center stood Queen Varelia, her crown glowing under the sun. Daniel stepped out slowly. He expected to be laughed at, maybe even scolded. But instead, the crowd bowed. To him, it made his skin crawl. He wasn't used to this. Queen Varelia walked up to him. "You walk lightly, Daniel Avert," she said. "Are you afraid?" He nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." She tilted her head. "I like honesty." Guards led him through the palace. Tall halls filled with light, statues, and moving energy patterns in the walls. Everything seemed alive, but also watching. He was taken to a large room. Silk sheets, golden mirrors, soft lights. "You will stay here," said a servant. "The queen will visit you after the sunset." Daniel sat on the bed. He felt like a prisoner in a golden cage. As night fell, Queen Varelia entered. She was no longer wearing her armor. Instead, a long robe with silver stars flowed behind her. She sat across from him, calm and confident. "I can see you are confused," she said. He nodded again. "More than confused." He said, "I didn't mean to propose." "I know," she said softly, "but intentions are not always what matter. In our world, actions speak louder." He sighed. "So I just picked up a crown, and now I'm your mate." She smiled. "Yes, but not just because of that. You see, the crown has a bond with me, a special one. It reacts only to those with pure spirit, with no hunger for power. When you lifted it, the crown accepted your touch. That has not happened in over 100 years. Daniel blinked. "So it's not just a rule, it's magic. Technology so old it feels like magic." She replied, "The crown chose you, and I accepted." He looked at her. "Why would you accept someone like me? I'm not strong, or royal, or important." She leaned in slightly. "Because I'm tired of warriors who speak with swords. I wanted someone who thinks, someone who sees what others miss. You picked up a crown, but you didn't look at the gold. You looked at me, and gave it back." There was silence between them. Daniel didn't know what to say. Outside the chamber, two shadowed figures spoke in whispers. "He cannot remain," said one. "He is human. Weak, not worthy. The people won't follow a soft outsider. The queen has made her choice," said the other. "Then we must make a different one." Back inside, the queen stood. "You will need to prove yourself, Daniel. There is a tradition, a trial of the consort." "Of course there is," he muttered. "What kind of trial?" "One of strength and loyalty," she replied. "It is not just for show. It is how you earn the people's respect." He shook his head slowly. "I don't know how to fight." "Then fight in your own way," she said. "Use your mind, use your heart." She stepped closer. "I can end this if you wish," she offered. "But it will bring shame. For you and for me." Daniel looked up at her. He saw something in her eyes. Strength, yes, but also hope. She wasn't mocking him. She truly believed he could do it. "I'll try," he said. "That's all I can promise." She nodded. "Then rest, consort of Valeria," she said. "For tomorrow, the trials begin." Daniel sat back down as she left. His heart pounded. He was no hero, no fighter, but somehow, he had become part of something bigger than himself. And he had no idea how to survive it. And they did not see many humans. Daniel had survived the crash with a broken arm and a broken ship. The Valari had taken him in. He fixed their machines. helped repair old tech, and stayed mostly out of sight. He didn't speak much, just worked and nodded politely. To them, he was soft, harmless, and strange, but he was useful. And in this place, that meant something. One morning, everything changed. A royal ship landed at the outpost. Everyone stood in line, their heads bowed low. Daniel didn't understand why until she stepped out. Queen Varelia, the ruler of Valeria. She was tall, graceful, and powerful. Her silver skin shimmered under the twin suns. Her golden crown sparkled like fire. She walked with pride, head high, eyes cold. The Valari bowed deeper, but Daniel just stood still. He had never seen a queen before. He didn't even know there was a queen. Then it happened. As she stepped forward, a gust of wind blew. The crown slipped from her head. It hit the ground with a soft sound, rolling slightly. No one moved. Not a single Valari dared to touch it. To them, the crown was sacred. Only the queen or her chosen mate could ever touch it. But Daniel didn't know that. He stepped forward, bent down, picked it up gently, and with a polite smile, handed it to her. "Excuse me, your ... Highness. I think you dropped this," he said. Silence. Every Valari stared in horror. A few gasped. Some even took a step back. The queen looked at him, shocked. Her eyes narrowed, then softened. She took the crown slowly from his hands. "You picked it up for me," she said softly, almost in wonder. Daniel nodded, unsure. "Yes. I didn't want it to get dirty." Then she smiled, a slow, mysterious smile. She turned to her people and raised the crown high. "He has chosen me," she declared. "I accept his claim." The crowd gasped again, louder this time. Daniel blinked. Queen Varelia stepped closer. "In our law, to lift the queen's crown is to ask for her hand," she said. "To return it willingly is to show honor, courage, and heart." She placed the crown back on her head. "And I have accepted you as my mate." Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. This is a misunderstanding," he stammered. "I was just being polite." She laughed gently. A deep and warm sound. "Politeness is rare here, Daniel of Earth," she said, "and so is truth." Before he could speak again, royal guards stepped forward. One of them spoke. "Your bond is witnessed. Your fate is sealed." The queen nodded. "Prepare him for the palace," she said, turning away. "I want him dressed properly before sunset." Daniel stood frozen. What just happened? He whispered to himself. The Valari outpost leader came close and whispered in his ear. "You picked up the crown, human. You just proposed to the queen." Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. He looked up at the royal ship, the crown, the queen. This couldn't be real, but it was. And as the guards led him toward the ship, Daniel realized something important. He was no longer a visitor, no longer a survivor. He was now the queen's chosen mate, by accident, and there was no going back. Morning arrived with the sound of horns, deep and powerful, echoing across the palace walls. Daniel woke with a jolt, heart pounding. Today was the trial, and he had no idea what to expect. He dressed in the robes left for him, dark blue with a silver crest on the chest. He looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like an engineer pretending to be a prince. Guards arrived and led him through the halls. They said nothing, their faces blank. Daniel felt the silence press against him. Even the air seemed heavier than usual. The trial grounds were massive, a wide circle of stone surrounded by a high wall. Hundreds of Valari watched from above. Nobles, warriors, advisors, all waiting to see the strange human who dared to touch the crown. Queen Varelia stood at the edge of the arena, tall and calm. She gave him a small nod. It wasn't much, but it gave him strength. A voice echoed through the arena. "The trial of the consort begins. 3 challenges await. Only one with strength, courage, and heart may pass." Daniel took a deep breath. He whispered to himself, "I'm not a fighter, but I am not stupid." The first challenge was a test of strength. A massive warrior stepped into the arena, 7 feet tall, muscles like stone. He held a blunt practice weapon in his hand. Daniel was handed a staff. It felt too heavy, too large. The crowd murmured, some already laughing. The warrior charged. Daniel rolled to the side, barely avoiding the strike. He didn't fight back, he couldn't. But he remembered something. Balance, physics, center of gravity. He dodged again, then jabbed the warrior's leg. Not hard, but just enough. The warrior stumbled. Daniel used the staff to trip him, turning his strength against him. The giant fell hard. The arena went silent. Then slowly, applause. He hadn't won with power. He had one with thinking. The second challenge was a puzzle. A glowing cube floated in the center of the arena. Energy lines moved across its surface, changing shapes and patterns. Daniel smiled. This was his world. He studied the cube, watching the way the energy pulsed. He touched the right symbols in the right order. The cube opened, releasing a soft hum. Another cheer, louder this time. Even the queen's eyes lit up with pride. But the third challenge was the hardest. A choice. 2 doors rose from the arena floor. Behind one door was safety. Behind the other, a trapped Valari child crying for help. A voice boomed. Choose one. Save yourself, or save the child. Daniel didn't even hesitate. He ran to the door with the child's voice, pushed it open and found a small girl behind a force field, crying. He stepped inside. The field closed behind him. Trapped, the crowd gasped. Some shouted, but Queen Varelia stood still, watching. Then the force field faded. The girl disappeared. Had all been an illusion. But Daniel had made the right choice. He had chosen to help someone else over himself. The gates opened. He walked back into the arena. Breathless, heart pounding, the crowd stood. This time, they cheered without hesitation. Queen Varelia stepped forward, her voice strong. Daniel of Earth has passed the trials. He is clever, brave, and kind. Let no one question his place at my side. Some nobles still frowned. Some whispered behind closed lips. But the people, the common Valari, they clapped, shouted, even chanted his name. Daniel stood there, confused and stunned. He hadn't planned this. He hadn't asked for it, but here he was. Not just a visitor anymore. Not just a survivor, but something more. That night, in the palace garden, Queen Varelia sat beside him under the stars. You surprised them, she said softly. I surprised myself, he answered. I was sure I was going to die in there. She smiled. You chose others before yourself. That is rare, even among my kind. Daniel looked up at the stars. Does this mean I'm truly your consort now? She turned to him, eyes shining. You are what the people saw today. A man with a strong mind and a strong heart. And yes, you are mine unless you choose to leave. Daniel stayed quiet. The wind moved through the glowing trees. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for now, he felt something strange. Not fear, not confusion, but a small spark of belonging. And he wasn't sure he wanted to leave. The palace was quiet after sunset. Soft lights glowed from the walls. Music drifted from a faraway hall, where nobles danced and toasted. But Daniel sat alone in his room, staring at the stars outside. He couldn't sleep. Not after everything that had happened. The trial, the cheers, the queen's words, it all still felt like a dream. He paced the room slowly. Guards stood outside his door, silent and still. He should have felt safe, but something was wrong. He could feel it, like cold air brushing against his neck. Suddenly, the lights in his room flickered, then went out. Darkness. Daniel stood still, heart beating fast. Hello, he called. No answer. Then he heard it. A soft sound like metal sliding across stone. Someone was inside. He backed away from the center of the room. His hands searched for something to hold anything. He found a metal lamp on the table. Not much, but better than nothing. A figure moved in the shadows, fast and silent. Daniel raised the lamp just as the intruder lunged. Metal flashed in the dark. He ducked, swung the lamp hard. It hit something. With a sharp crack, the figure stumbled back. Daniel ran toward the door, shouting, Guards! Guards! But the guards were gone. Another shadow moved. There were 2 attackers. Maybe more. Daniel dodged again, rolling across the floor. He grabbed a small chair and threw it, buying himself a second. Then he sprinted to the far wall and hit the emergency beacon. A red light flashed. Alarms rang out. Moments later, the doors burst open. Queen Varelia was the first to enter. Her face was hard, eyes blazing. She moved like lightning, drawing a glowing blade from her side. One assassin turned to run too late. The queen struck once, clean and fast. The figure dropped to the ground without a sound. The second attacker tried to grab Daniel. The queen didn't hesitate. She threw her blade straight through the attacker's chest. Silence returned. Only Daniel's breathing filled the room. He leaned against the wall. Shaking, Varelia walked over to him. Are you hurt? He shook his head. I'm okay, he said quietly. But the guards, they were gone. She turned to her captain, who had arrived with more soldiers. Find them, she ordered. Alive or dead. The captain bowed and rushed out. Daniel looked at the bodies on the floor. Who were they? Traitors, she said coldly. Or hired blades, sent by those who hate our bond. He swallowed hard. So it's real. Then, There are people who want me dead. Yes, she said without looking away. And they won't stop now. She stepped closer. But I won't let anyone harm you, Daniel, not while I still breathe. Daniel looked into her eyes. He saw more than anger. He saw pain, and something deep regret, maybe even fear. She wasn't just a queen tonight. She was a woman standing between him and death. Later, guards surrounded his room. The windows were sealed, and hidden senses were activated. He sat by the fire, the queen sitting across from him. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then Daniel broke the silence. Why go so far from me? She didn't answer at first. Then she said, because you remind me of what I once believed in. He tilted his head. What was that? That peace is possible, she whispered. That strength doesn't always come from power. She stood slowly. You should rest, Daniel. I'll double the guards myself. Before she left, she paused at the door. Tomorrow, I will take you to the Hall of Crowns. There is something you must see. Daniel nodded, but sleep didn't come. He lay in bed, eyes wide. Someone had tried to kill him, someone who feared what he represented. He thought he had fallen into a strange fairy tale. But now, he knew this world had teeth, and someone, somewhere, wanted to end his story early. As the moon rose high above the palace, Daniel whispered into the darkness. This was never just about a crown. The next morning, the sky above Valeria was cloudy. A soft wind passed through the palace, carrying the scent of rain. Daniel stood beside Queen Valeria on a high balcony. Below them, the city spread wide, glowing with life. But Daniel wasn't looking at the city. He was looking at the crown in the queen's hands. You said it chose me, Daniel said quietly. But why? Valeria looked at the golden crown, her fingers tracing the sharp edges. This crown is not just metal, she said. It is a living relic, left by those who came before us. Aliens, Daniel asked. Even older than the Valari, she answered. Some call them the Makers. They left behind knowledge, hidden in symbols and songs. She turned and began walking. Come, she said. There's something I want to show you. Daniel followed her down long marble halls and spiral staircases. They passed ancient carvings, flickering lights, and giant statues. Each one told stories of war, peace, and change. Finally, they reached a large silver door covered in glowing lines. This is the Hall of Crowns, she said. It is only opened by those the crown accepts. She stepped aside. You must touch the door. Daniel hesitated. But what if it doesn't work this time? Then we learn something new, she said with a calm smile. He reached out slowly. His hand touched the cold silver. The lines lit up. A deep hum filled the air, and the door opened. Inside, the chamber was dark at first. Then lights flickered on, revealing walls covered in symbols. In the center of the room stood a pedestal. Hovering above it was a second crown almost identical to the queen's, but darker, older. Daniel stepped closer. He felt the air change around him. It was like the room could feel his presence. What is this place? He asked. Valeria walked beside him. Only 3 people in the last 1,000 years have been able to enter this room, she said. My mother, myself, and now you. She pointed at the symbols. These are the words of the Makers. They speak of a bond, a balance, a warning. Daniel frowned. A warning. Yes, she nodded. They said the crown must only be worn by one who is chosen by both the people and the past. One with a heart that does not seek power, but carries it when needed. He turned to her. So if the wrong person wears it, the crown can destroy them or worse. Use them. Daniel stepped back, feeling the weight of that idea. This thing isn't just tradition, he said. It's a key, and a test, she added. The Makers knew power could corrupt. Daniel looked at the second crown. Why is there another one? Because the first crown was made for unity, she said, but the second was made for war. Suddenly, the walls flickered. Images appeared, battles, explosions, planets burning. A deep voice echoed through the chamber, in an unknown language. Daniel felt a sharp pain in his head. He closed his eyes, but the images stayed. Then everything stopped. He opened his eyes slowly. Valeria was kneeling beside him, her hand on his shoulder. You saw it, didn't you? He nodded, breathing hard. Yeah, and I wish I hadn't. She helped him stand. The crown showed you what could return. He looked at her. So this is bigger than just you and me. Much bigger, she said. The old enemy is waking up, and the crown thinks you are part of the answer. Daniel laughed once, a tired sound. I was just trying to survive a ship crash. Now I'm part of some ancient prophecy. She smiled gently. Life does that sometimes. As they walked out of the chamber, Daniel asked, do you think this is why Someone tried to kill me. Varelia's face turned serious. I believe they sensed the crown's choice, and those who fear change will always try to stop it. Daniel nodded slowly. Then we better find out what this thing really wants from me. Agreed, she said, and soon, because far away, beyond the stars, something else had seen the crown awaken, and it was no longer sleeping. The night sky over Valeria turned red, not with fire, but with warning. Dozens of glowing signals lit up the horizon. Enemy ships had entered Valerian space. Daniel stood on the palace tower, watching them arrive, dark metal giants in the sky, moving slow and silent. They didn't fire, not yet. But everyone knew what was coming. Queen Varelia joined him, her face calm but serious. They're called the Zereth, she said quietly. A war-born empire, exiled long ago. They hate us because we chose peace. Daniel swallowed hard. How did they know? Now was the time to strike. She turned toward him. They saw the crown activate. They saw it choose you. Daniel frowned. So me picking up your crown woke up an old enemy. Yes, she said. And now we must answer. Inside the palace, chaos was beginning. Commanders argued in the war hall. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to surrender before it was too late. The advisors still didn't trust Daniel, but they could no longer ignore him. He stepped into the war room and pointed at the glowing map. You're preparing for battle with swords and shields, he said. But the Zareth have plasma cannons and stealth tech. You can't match them with strength. You need to outthink them. One general scoffed. And what does a human know of battle? Daniel didn't back down. I know how to disable a ship with a signal loop. I know how to blind sensors using basic light pulses. And I know how to trick machines better than any warrior in this room. The queen raised her hand. Let him speak, she said. Or would you rather die proud but unprepared? The room fell silent. Daniel stepped forward. Give me a team, he said. Let me rig the towers around the city. I'll turn your defenses into traps. You'll have one night, said the queen. After that, they will attack. Daniel worked fast. He chose 6 Valari engineers and got to work. They set up towers with sonic disruptors, energy mirrors, and fake heat signals. They even built fake weapon systems to draw enemy fire. He used old tricks, simple tricks. But with Valerian tech, they became powerful. The next morning, the sky turned black. The Zereth began their descent. Columns of fire cut through the clouds as their ships roared toward the city. But when they reached the outer towers, something happened. Their targeting systems failed. Their engines glitched. They crashed into their own jamming fields. Daniel's traps worked, at least for now, but one ship made it through. A massive vessel, black and gold. It landed just outside the palace walls. From it stepped a Zareth commander, covered in spiked armor, glowing with red lines. He spoke through a loudspeaker. Give us the human, he growled. Give us the crown-bonded one, or we destroy your city. The crowd in the city square panicked. Some shouted for Daniel to surrender. Others stood frozen, afraid. Daniel looked at the queen. I should go, he said quietly. If it stops them. No, she said firmly. If they want you, it's because they fear you, and fear gives us power. She turned to the people, raised her voice high. This human is no enemy, she shouted. He is proof that we are still chosen by the Makers. And if the Zareth fear him, then we stand with him. The people began to cheer, slowly at first, then louder. The queen turned back to Daniel. Are you ready to stand with me? He took a breath. I'm no warrior, he said. But I'll stand. The battle began. Valerian warriors clashed with Zareth soldiers. The palace shook with every blast. But Daniel stayed at the control station, guiding energy shields, redirecting power. He turned every part of the palace into a weapon. Lifts became traps. Walls shifted, halls sealed, and then silence. The last Zareth ship fell from the sky in flames. The battle was over. The people of Valeria stood in the city square, wounded but alive. They had won, because of her leadership and his mind. Queen Varelia stood beside Daniel on the high steps. This is what unity looks like, she said. Not fear, not fire, but hope. Daniel looked at the sky. The stars were returning, and for the first time, he felt like one of them. The city of Valeria was quiet now. The fires were out. The skies were clear. And the people, though tired, were alive. Daniel stood on the same tower, where it all began. Where he had once picked up a fallen crown. He looked down at the silver rooftops, glowing trees, and winding bridges. He could hardly believe this was the same place where he had crashed weeks ago. Behind him, the doors opened softly. Queen Varelia stepped onto the balcony, dressed in a white and gold robe. Her crown rested lightly on her head, but her expression was serious. "You saved us," she said simply. "You gave us more than victory. You gave us a future." Daniel turned and smiled a little. "I had help," he said, "and a lot of luck." "You had heart," she replied, "and the courage to act when others hesitated." There was a long silence between them. The wind carried the scent of morning flowers. Everything felt calm, but under that peace was something unspoken. Daniel looked away. "I've been thinking," he said. "I came here by accident, but I've stayed by choice." Varelia stepped closer. "And now," he hesitated, "I don't belong to this world, but I've come to care about it." He turned to face her fully. "I never wanted power, or a crown, or a title, but I've found something here, something that feels real." Her eyes softened. "And what is that?" He looked into her eyes. "You." For the first time, Queen Varelia seemed unsure of what to say. She stepped back, surprised by the simplicity of his words. "I never expected a human to change my path," she whispered. "But you have." They stood side by side, watching the sunrise together. Then she said, "There is a ceremony, if you wish, a bond that makes the connection eternal." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Marriage, something like that." She smiled. "But in our culture, it is not a chain. It is a choice made in front of the people and the stars. And if I say yes, then you become one of us fully, completely." Daniel looked up at the morning sky. He thought of Earth, his old life, the quiet lab, the empty apartment. He thought of Valeria, the people, the music, the danger, the beauty. He thought of her, and the choice became easy. He turned back to her and said, "Then let the stars hear it. I choose you." The ceremony was held that evening. Under the twin moons, a wide platform was built in the heart of the city. The people gathered, dressed in light and color. No soldiers, no weapons, only peace. Daniel stood beside Queen Varelia, his robe marked with the crest of Valeria. The elder priest raised the ancient crown high. "The makers gave us power," he said, "but only love can give it purpose." The crown glowed, responding to the bond between them. It floated above their heads and released a wave of golden light, a signal of unity, of acceptance. The crowd erupted in cheers, not just for the queen, but for the human who had earned his place beside her. After the ceremony, as the stars filled the sky, Daniel sat with Varelia in the palace garden. She rested, her head on his shoulder, and for once, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. He thought about how far he had come, from lost engineer to royal consort, from stranger to protector, from outsider to something more. Varelia finally broke the silence. "You still don't like attention, do you?" He laughed. "No, but I like you." She smiled and closed her eyes. "Then that is enough." And high above them, the stars shimmered, as if even the universe approved.